You really grow as you serve, and as you give out and as you serve others, you really receive more in return. And I think that's the most precious gift that we as Lions have, is that we can give that gift.
Any physical remnant of the birthplace of Lionism in Hawai'i has been obliterated, unfortunately, by the march of times. And it was here that it all began. The 51 names on the charter document represented a who's who of the Honolulu business and social community. Since its official beginning on October 11, 1926, the true origins of the Lions Club of Honolulu have been steeped in mystery and misconceptions, until now. The roots of the club actually began about 15 years earlier, inspired by local philanthropist Alexander Hume Ford. Never wanting for money, Ford hailed from a wealthy South Carolina family that provided him with the best education and all the refinements of a privileged life. Embarking on his new career of promoting global peace, Ford's Pan-Pacific Union Club would meet every Tuesday in the old Coney Estate at 1141 Richard Street, which is now the Eva side of the state capitol grounds. It began as sort of a think tank for solving world problems, but it soon evolved into a political action group that tried to use the clout of their influential membership to effect social change. It wasn't long before Pop Ford and his Pan-Pacific followers began making news around the globe, openly challenging world leaders with some very radical ideas for the time.
I mean, you have to stop and consider, this man was contacting presidents like Harding and Wilson, dictators and chancellors and kings all over the world. He was getting their attention. Many times he would actually hand deliver these notices to them to come to Honolulu, understand the culture here, see how people get along, and maybe we can all work together to do this on a global scale. Literally, what Ford was proposing was the United Nations. And this was in like 1920, 1921. This was a very radical notion. Peace among all men, of all nations, of all colors, of all cultures, of all religions. Way ahead of his time. He even wanted to have an Olympics here in Honolulu. Wow.
Meanwhile, over 5,000 miles away in Illinois, another group had already begun making news of their own. Founded by Chicago businessman Melvin Jones, the International Association of Lions Clubs was formed in 1917 in hopes of becoming another worldwide force for service to humanity. However, Jones and his Lions members targeted their mission directly to the grassroots level. While Pop Ford's Pan-Pacific Union sought to promote world peace by bringing about change from the top down, the Lions sought to create a better world, one local community at a time. The simple, non-political, non-religious concept of Lionism spread quickly throughout the U.S. Hundreds of local clubs were formed by the mid-1920s. But beyond a handful of clubs in Canada, the international part of Lionism was going nowhere. That's when Lions leadership in Chicago began taking an even greater interest in the small, but very noisy, Pan-Pacific Union Club in faraway territorial Hawaii. With both organizations seemingly seeking the same goals, it was only a matter of time before talk of a merger began. Melvin Jones made the first move. He sent representatives from California's Long Beach Lions Club to Honolulu in the spring of 1926. Their mission? To check out the Pan-Pacific Union Club and report back on the viability of uniting the two organizations. Lions leadership was hoping they'd be able to capitalize on the international credibility the Pan-Pacific Union had already established. And with Honolulu leading the way, the Lions would then have a strong base of operations to grow throughout the Pacific Rim. The Pan-Pacific Union members welcomed the visitors with typical aloha, extending courtesies fit for heads of state. But Pop Ford knew exactly why the Lions had come calling, and while openly gracious, he had his own motives to pursue a merger.